Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving straight into the absolute madness that was the 2026 Canadian Grand Prix. Circuit Gilles Villeneuve delivered a race that was thrilling, chaotic, and honestly, pretty heartbreaking. We'll be breaking down all the wild strategies, the data, and those catastrophic failures that completely define the weekend.
Here's how we're going to tackle this. We'll start with qualifying in the grid, move into that crazy pre-race chaos, cover the battle for the lead, Russell's shock retirement, the final race results, and wrap up with the latest championship standings.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, qualifying and starting grid. Just look at the sheer dominance from Mercedes here. The conditions were incredibly tricky, cold, wet, you name it. But George Russell, he absolutely mastered the circuit. He threw down a blistering Q3 time of 1 minute 12.578 seconds that snatched pole position literally a fraction of a second ahead of his teenage sensation teammate Kimi Antonelli. So a massive front-row lockout for the Silver Arrows, with McLaren's Lando Norris slotting in right behind them in third. Man, the stage was perfectly set for a Mercedes runaway.
Moving on to Section 2, chaos before the start.
Okay, so just as the grid was forming up on Sunday, pure chaos hits. Arvid Lindblad's Racing Bulls car suffers a clutch hydraulic issue and completely stalls out. Because they couldn't clear his car fast enough, race control literally had to abort the start. This meant the field had to do 2 extra agonizingly slow formation laps, officially reducing the race distance from 70 down to 68 laps. Now, on paper, that sounds like a minor delay. But in reality, it completely flipped the strategic landscape of the whole race upside down.
And here's where it gets crazy, right? Because of those mixed weather conditions, McLaren decided to take a massive gamble. Their weather radar was screaming that rain was imminent, so they bolted intermediate wet weather tires onto both of their cars. But the rest of the field, they rolled the dice on slick tires, betting that the track was going to dry out. It was a huge, high-stakes split in strategy.
Well, because of that delayed start and those extra formation laps, the track actually dried out super fast. This triggered what engineers call a dry-up thermal effect. Basically, McLaren's intermediate tires were grinding on dry asphalt way too long, and they just massively overheated. The rubber tread blocks literally hardened up and destroyed their grip before the race even officially started. It was wild. Oscar Piastri was actually on the radio begging his team to pit, knowing the tires were toast, but McLaren kept him out there, totally paralyzed by that radar still promising rain. Just a complete disaster for them.
So, let's get right into Section 3, the battle for the lead.
Now, remarkably, Mercedes didn't issue any team orders. Russell and Antonelli just fought tooth and nail, trading the lead lap after lap. It was this dazzling, limit-pushing driving, exactly the kind of fierce, close-quarters racing F1 fans absolutely live for. I mean, they were matching each other sector for sector. At this point, a Mercedes 1-2 finish looked like a total lock.
Which brings us to Section 4, Russell's shocking retirement.
So, lap 30, George Russell is running right at the very front, fighting hard for the lead, when suddenly, bam, a catastrophic power unit failure. Out of nowhere, the car just loses all drive. He's forced to pull off the track right at the turn 8 and 9 chicane. Just like that, his race is instantly over, handing the uncontested lead directly to his teammate Antonelli.
You can imagine the absolute heartbreak. Russell stepped out of that car in total disbelief. He later told reporters, "It feels like somebody doesn't want me to fight or compete for this championship." And you know what? When you realize this is the 3rd time in just 5 races that he's been hit with severe bad luck, you totally get his frustration. He was driving a brilliant race, and it was just snatched away by a mechanical ghost.
Mercedes boss Toto Wolff and technical director James Allison later confirmed exactly what went wrong. It was a module failure. Essentially, the battery inside the power unit took on severe heat damage and just completely died. Toto Wolff even pointed out that the car was literally going backward on track because there was zero electrical energy left to push it forward. Just a highly complex failure at the absolute worst possible moment.
All right, let's look at Section 5, the final race results. With Russell out, Kimi Antonelli basically cruised to a magnificent victory. Coming across the line over 10 seconds behind him was Lewis Hamilton, grabbing a brilliant second place for Ferrari after this really thrilling late race fight. And rounding out the podium in third was Max Verstappen. This is actually huge, by the way, because it's Red Bull and their new engine partner Ford's very first podium of the entire 2026 season.
4. That is the magic number here. It's the number of consecutive Grand Prix victories Kimi Antonelli has racked up this season. The kid is just operating on a totally different level right now. He's riding this incredible wave of momentum that the rest of the grid is finding almost impossible to break. Finally, let's wrap things up with Section 6, Championship Point Standings. Thanks to that insane string of victories, combined directly with Russell's brutal luck, Antonelli has now blown open a massive 43-point gap at the top of the Drivers' Championship. Russell is still holding on to second with 88 points, but honestly, that gap is starting to look like a massive mountain to climb, especially if Mercedes can't guarantee his car is actually going to finish races.
Looking over at the Constructors' Championship, even with the DNF, Mercedes is still just running away with the title. They're sitting pretty at 219 points, comfortably ahead of Ferrari at 147. McLaren, after that completely disastrous pre-race tire gamble we talked about, is trailing way back in third with 106 points. The Silver Arrows simply have the pace advantage this year, no question about it.
So we'll leave you with this thought to wrap up today's explainer. With a 43-point gap and a car that is so clearly the class of the field, can anyone actually stop Kimi Antonelli now? Or has George Russell's heartbreaking mechanical luck already decided the 2026 World Championship before we've even hit the halfway mark? Something to definitely think about the next time the lights go out. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll catch you on the next explainer.